Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about marine environments. Whenever we talk about life in the ocean, we have to think about it in the terms of different types of environments, just like we do it on the land. We talk about whether it be tundra or the Sahara or the plains or mountainous regions, whatever the case may be on land. Well, we think of oceans exactly the same way, except we have to break them up differently because they look differently. And the best way that we look at these is we've broken them into 6 zones basically. 3 of them are vertical and 3 of them are horizontal. So what I mean by that is when we're talking about it from the coastline, vertical being up and down in the column of water, horizontal away from the coastline. So that's where the 6 zones are broken apart. If we look at the vertical zones first, the first one is the photic zone. Photic zone is named that because light can penetrate that, but no more than about 100 meters. So without light penetrating deeper than 100 meters, that's where the photic zone ends. So photic being light, photic, and typically we'll find plants, photosynthesis can occur here, and consequently most life lives here as well in the ocean. Once we get below that, we go to the aphotic zone. Aphotic zone is roughly below 100 meters, roughly below 100 meters or so, and that's where light can't penetrate any longer. There are no plants here, and because there's no plants, there's no photosynthesis. Obviously, that's the reason this happens. The benthic zone. The benthic zone is actually one of my favorites, which is the absolute bottom of the ocean floor. Now, this ocean benthic floor can be all the way up from the very edge of the coast all the way to the very bottom of the abyss. So anything below and in the bottom, whether it be oceanic trench, whatever the case may be, that is still the benthic. So we think of the benthic is very large, anywhere on the bottom of the basin itself. Picture of the aphotic. Of course, there's most life here. You have lots of plant life, which brings plankton, and then plankton brings fish, and etc. Just a whole food chain that begins here. So photic is a very active place. Here's the aphotic zone. There is life in the aphotic. Typically, they have some of that incandescent, where they can glow a little bit. This is a starfish, or a jellyfish that lives here. Next one. The benthic, and the benthic, of course, is the very bottom. Anything that touches the bottom, a lot of starfish, we see a lot of crawlers here. So whatever life is there usually lives on the bottom. Horizontally, and then we were talking about away from the ocean here, away from the coast. So if we talk about the ocean zone, the largest zone is the ocean zone itself, which is 90% of the surface of the ocean. So this is very shallow. Where we talk about the Noretic zone being just below that, or farther out from that. The Noretic zone is usually the continental shelf. You remember that from when we did our measuring and depth finding, and that's usually about 500 meters out from the coastline itself. This is like what we would consider the rainforest of the ocean. Most of the life is in the Noretic, and that's where we'll find these things. The intertidal zone, that's where the tides can come in, so sometimes it's underwater, tides will go in and out, and when it goes out, we don't know why they were, but there will be organisms can live in both of these, so there has to be no water and with water. The oceanic zone, of course, we have our migrators, which includes things like the whales, some of the shark species, etc. The Noretic zone, you can see the Noretic. This is where we got some life there, lots of coral reef. It can be even up on the shells, or it goes up and be in our intertidal zone there. This picture of the intertidal, you can see the starfish. They can be underwater. Sometimes they're up on the rocks. They're out. They have to be able to live in both environments. Clams, crabs, these kind of things live here. Here's a good picture of the marine environments. You want to take a special note of this picture. The assignment you're going to have to fulfill with this picture is going to be a big part of it. You can see where the sunlight penetrates in. That's going to, of course, give our photic. Aphotic goes lower, and then, of course, the bottom, which is the benthic, and the very bottom being the abysmal. But remember, the abysmal is actually the benthic zone. And then we have the continental shelves, etc. Alright, benthic creatures, we definitely can consider them to be crawlers. They're crawlers because they're on the bottom. These animals live in the coral reefs. There's usually rocky shores, tidal zones, shallow ocean floors, deep ocean, the abyss, which is those weird creatures that we see. But these are crawlers. Anything that lives on the bottom, our starfish, crawler. So they're benthic. The benthic environment, of course, includes mussels, hermit crabs, starfish, sea urchins. You can see there's a bunch that live there. But they're anything typically pretty primitive as well. The pelagic creature, or swimmers, These are anything like sharks. Of course, we have the fish, nautilus, squid, jellyfish, anything that can swim, that has buoyancy. These animals have developed bladders that allow them to do that, with the exception of course, like sharks, which are very different. They don't have a swim bladder. They've got the large liver that secretes an oil that helps them stay buoyant. That's very different from a fish. They also don't have any bones. They're all cartilage. Okay, so fish have bones. So they've developed differently, but they're both considered pelagic. Some of the other creatures found in this environment can be mammals. So we have whales, dolphins, seals, walrus. And these animals have developed special adaptations like echolocation, blowholes, and then they do seagull migration routes. So those are our mammals that will do that. Of course, there's some pictures of the pelagic creatures, whales, sharks. There's our seals. So that's the mammal. Alright, this is what I'd like you to do for this. Even though you've taken these notes, I want you to go ahead and finish it up with this assignment. You're going to go to your page, your book on page 373. Wait a minute. 373. Develop a diagram on a single piece of paper. And on that diagram, what I want you to include are the 6 marine environments. In the environment, I want you to include some examples and pictures of animals that are found in each of these. And I also want you to make sure you have the depth in the environment. So if you remember, we looked at that picture in our notes. Let's go back. This is essentially what I'm asking you to develop, is these different breakdowns on these 6 zones, showing me you understand where they are, how deep they are, and then what animals can live there. Okay? You may also want to look at chapters 14, 15, 16, and 17 to help you find some extra animals that live there, or species that can be found there. Also, feel free to use the internet. You can look that stuff up, find some pictures of these unusual creatures, especially the benthic. You'll find some really cool stuff there. Alright, that's it. This is part of it. So this picture goes with your notes. Alright, talk to you later.